Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. Excitement, intimacy, confidence. Uberlube helps you feel all the things you want to feel by reducing friction and boosting pleasure. It's clean, body safe, latex compatible, and free of parabens or preservatives. Basically, it's sex lube done right. Want to try it out for yourself? Use code SEXEDWITHDB at uberlube.com for 10% off your purchase. Flicking the bean, jilling off, menage a moi. All of these are creative and hilarious ways to say masturbation. For 21 days, I embarked on what started as a personal masturbation experiment with one of my all-time favorite vibes, the magic wand. The goal? To answer one burning question. What is the impact of daily magic wand use on my health, wellness, and sexual experiences compared to regular sexual activity and no sexual activity? Spoiler alert, the results were so surprising they inspired me and the Magic Wand team to turn this experiment into a full-fledged scientific study. Now 1,000 other people have experienced how consistent self-pleasure affects everything from mental health to sexual satisfaction. Want to see the results from the study? Head to magicwandstudy.com to check it out. Feeling like you and your partner are in a bit of a bedroom rut? Been there. What helped? A little Lion's Den adventure. Whether you're into toys, massage oils, or sexy games, Lion's Den has everything to help couples connect in fun, low-pressure ways. Shopping together can be half the fun. Visit lionsden.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB and get 15% off your purchase. Trust me, date night just got way more interesting. Hello, DB here, your favorite sex educator and pleasure expert, and this is DB's Pleasure Preview, where I give you a little taste of what we're diving into today, why it matters, and how it might just change the way that you think about sex. Last episode, we talked to Midori about dominance, feminine dominance to be exact. Midori focused on finding what will please you instead of what you think should please you. And I wanted to speak with someone who lives out that practice day to day. I sat down to talk with TammyJo Eckhart, a friend of a friend who lives every day in an MS or master-slave relationship. Don't let that wording scare you. Listeners of this show should always feel safe knowing that the folks we talk to are always engaging in consensual and informed play. In fact, TammyJo's experiences might even make you understand why someone would consent to having a title like slave or submissive if you didn't get it before. Like we talked about in Midori's episode, master-slave relationships are about so much more than what we typically see in media. It's actually pretty hard to find genuine representation of any BDSM lifestyles. Combine that with living in a poly household, and we really only have the movie Professor Marston and the Wonder Women, which is on my list, have not seen it yet, but it is a story of psychologist William Moulton Marston and his polyamorous relationship with his wife and their mistress, who would inspire his creation of the superheroine Wonder Woman. Incredible. Cannot wait to watch. This is why it's so important to really educate yourself before you engage in a relationship like what TammyJo has with her consensual slave, or before you pass judgment. Let's focus on what makes us feel safe and what brings us pleasure. For TammyJo, keeping both of those in focus is a constant conversation. Here's my interview with TammyJo. And as always, you'll find her links in the show notes. Hello and welcome. Could you go ahead and give a quick introduction of yourself for our listeners? You can feel free to use a pseudonym also.
Hi, I'm TammyJo Eckhart. I'm out, so that is my real name. That is what I'm published under. That's where you can find me on social media. I am an ancient historian. I have a PhD in ancient history with minors in folklore and the history of gender and sexuality. I've been married for 33 years, and I have been in a consensual master-slave relationship for 25 years. I'm a published author and a award-winning educator of kink and also history topics. And I'm very happy to be here today to talk with you, Danielle, about SM and how it actually works in real life, and how MS relationships might differ from DS ones.
Awesome. Wow. You're so cool. Thank you so much, TammyJo. I really appreciate you sharing that. Fantastic introduction. So, what initially drew you to an MS dynamic? How did you discover that this was the right fit for you?
So when I was a little girl growing up, I processed the world very differently, I learned, than other children. When I saw a TV show where there was any sort of power or authority between romantic couples or potentially romantic couples, I would remember it if it was the woman in charge. If it was the man in charge, which was the most common model, I just often forgot it. It just didn't appeal to me. So there's something at my very core identity level that feels very strongly about how I should be in a female-led relationship, and that I'm very capable of being the person who makes the decision and has the authority in a relationship. I didn't actually know what kink was or BDSM was until I got into college. When I got into college, I started taking some women's studies courses, which might sound funny, but in the 1980s, they were looking at issues of power and authority. They were looking at pornography, and this exposed me to what was mostly a for-profit kink world. But through it and through the new internet, I discovered there were people who did this stuff in real life. They weren't just making movies and videos and selling products. They actually lived this way. And so I learned about it. I learned how to do it safely and consensually. I've been doing it since I was, since 1990. So for a long time, my current MS relationship is 25 years old. I had about a dozen DS or MS relationships before that. I've also helped people explore kink in a structured way for many decades before that.
Wow, that's super interesting. I love this idea of this is how you process the world as a young person and really noticed like who was in charge and specifically how that felt for you when the woman was in charge, translating to women's study courses and to you having these relationships in your everyday life. I'm curious, what does a typical day look like in your MS relationship? Do you have any rituals or protocols that kind of help define your roles?
So a typical day has changed over time. When I first got into a relationship with my current consensual slave, he lived in the dorms at college. He lived with us in the summers, and then he would go back to college. This was for the first couple years. So obviously, when you're not living together, your daily routine changes. Once we started living together, changes happened as the relationship grew and we grew as people, and what we did with our lives changed. So when we were both still in college and at university, earning our degrees, doing research, I was also teaching, we had a lot more structure. We had to set up specific times to do things simply because our schedules were so complex. As I transitioned away from academia into being a full-time author and a part-time educator, I had more free time. And as the pandemic happened in 2020, for those of you who still remember it, my slave started working from home full-time. So we had to adjust what we did. We have specific rituals that we use at specific times. We have a nightly ritual where he'll help put me to bed. He kisses my feet. We have a ritual where we greet each other in the morning. We have set protocols, which are structures that you set up to help you function day in and day out. We're a very low protocol household because I prefer to function on the level that this is natural and normal. Our relationship is healthy and it helps both of us. And therefore, we don't need all these rigid structures in place, but we have a certain set of rules that we use and that we follow.
That actually leads me right to my next question. How do you navigate consent and rules and boundaries within a 24/7 power exchange? Talk to me about that.
So when I lived in New York City for 5 years and I got into the kink community there, so I finally meeting people face to face. One of the things I developed was a formal procedure to meet partners. So if you're a female, especially when you're younger and you're in a city with an active kink community, you will get a lot of people who come up to you and who claim they want to be with you, they want to see you. And I developed procedures that help me kind of sort through all of that. It saved me time. I was in graduate school at Columbia University at the time. I was a research assistant and then I was a teaching assistant. My time was limited. My writing career was just starting to take off. And I used that intense structure to help figure out if a person was right for me. It is during that process that we would go through exercises, some of them from books about kink that we would learn, some of which were literally testing out scenarios, testing out equipment, testing out play, how well did we relate to each other in different types of play. And we would each take notes, we would talk about things, and then after a certain period of time, we would revisit everything and talk about, do we think we are a match? Do we think this should go forward? It sounds very structured, I know, after I've told you that I'm already a low protocol person. I'm a low protocol person within an existing dynamic. I use the structure to help me decide whether or not it's worth getting into a dynamic with someone. You negotiate all the stuff that you're going to need during that period, during the testing period. Some people call it training. Some people simply call it, the early stages of your relationship. I think a lot of people jump into relationships when they really need to be testing and kind of the waters in each other first. Just jumping headlong into a DS or MS relationship is usually not a very good way to establish your rules, your boundaries, or your consent. It's only through trial and error that you can figure that out.
Interesting. Has anything changed about that contract or negotiation over time now that your relationship isn't quite as new?
We used to have, my consensual slave and I, a very long and complicated contract that came from all that initial testing. Over the years, it's become more of a mutual short-term contract that doesn't list all the specifics and really gives me a lot more authority and power than I initially wanted to have. I preferred to have these sort of guardrails in place, but my slave really wants it to just flow and feel natural. So my rules for me in our relationship is I will respect his need for some privacy. I respect his need to make healthy financial decisions, and I will respect healthy friendships and family interactions for him. The key word there being healthy. Sometimes things are not healthy, and so I will bring that to his attention. And I do have the right to say things like, "No, this is not what you need."
And what does he provide for you now?
The flip side of that is his job is to make my life easier and happy. That's really broad. And how we make that happen is we literally check in every day. Part of the evening ritual where he kisses my feet is, how was your day? How are things going? That happens multiple times a day. He has to check on me several times a day to make sure I have the water I need. If there's anything I would like him to do. Those are times when we also check in. How are things going? What's going on? We also have family meetings that happen once a week where we check in with everybody in the household because we're a poly household.
Oh, yeah. Those check ins sound so important for both of you, which makes a ton of sense.
You have to have that constant check in because if you just kind of let it go, or if you have all these protocols and rules and guidelines, you can rest too much. You can just assume that things are going well because your rituals are going through, because your protocols are being followed. But you can go on automatic and you might not even realize that you have a problem or that things are brewing underneath because you're just going with it. Same thing on the flip side. If you don't have any protocols or rules, if you don't check in with each other, you just go on automatic. And I've seen many couples who then just they let all the kink fall aside. They start having arguments and disagreements like regular old vanilla couples. And part of what you need to have in an MS relationship, part of what makes it different is really, really important. And if you don't have that, you're not going to have DS relationship at all.
Another great segue there, actually. What is one misconception that people have about MS relationships that you really wish you could correct right here and now?
Oh, one. You want me to give one misconception? Oh my.
Yeah, just one if you can.
So at the top of my list is this is a relationship. It's not a job. It's not a fetish. It's not a part-time thing you do once a month when you can get time off of work. If you're actually in an MS relationship, that is your relationship. That is how it's defined. But it's still a relationship. Both of you have needs. Both of you have wants. Both of you have talents and skills. You have physical body that is not always going to cooperate with what you want. You exist in a greater world which does not legally recognize your relationship. And in terms of culture and social support, depending on where you live, you may not have much of that. So you really have to think about it as two people who are equals who decided to get into a relationship where the structure they've created is to be unequal. So that's the key point. It's a relationship. Second thing, and I though you only wanted one, I'm going to say the second one, is you have to understand that it is a structured relationship. Yes, it's a human relationship, but you have structured it. You being plural. At least two of you have structured this relationship. And if it's just one person imposing their will down onto the other, then you do not have a consensual relationship. So you both need to be part of that process. I'll be honest with you, a lot of times the dominant or the master figure will come with all these standards and all these rules and all these rituals, often because they have more experience. And also because there's this expectation that they're going to be the one with authority. Remember, you don't have that authority until you've collectively agreed that you have that authority. So it is both a human relationship and it is a structured human relationship.
Yes, you are dropping knowledge left and right. This is so fantastic. I'm wondering, how has being in this dynamic changed the way that you experience intimacy and connection? And what's the best part of this dynamic for you?
Not so much our dynamic in particular, the one I have now, but being aware of BDSM, being aware that I wasn't, a strange little girl who's processing the world through a femdom lens. There were other people doing similar or the same thing. Knowing that has made me more accepting of myself. I introduced myself with my real name. I am out. I made that decision when I lived in New York City. I am one of a small number of kinky people who is completely out. That has actually made my life so less stressful emotionally and psychologically. It is so easy to tell yourself that what you desire and what you do is bad, is wrong, is evil. I've held people who've cried telling me they think they're evil for having these desires. And when you shed that, you can become your full self. And it really frees you from a lot of fears and worries that I think are so common for people to have, even on the subconscious level. And what that means is if I am more free and accepting of myself, then I can open up and share myself more completely with another person. And if you have empathy, and I like to believe I do, I can then be more open to them sharing themselves with me. And to take it to my current relationship, one of the things my consensual slave has told me repeatedly is that he feels more fully himself with me than he has ever felt before. He has still some internal voices, I would say, that prevent him from being fully accepting, but he's younger. He has a little less experience. And he also has his own life experiences that are different than mine, that are probably standing in the way of that. But the fact that we feel that connection, that we can be more fully ourselves with each other, that is an amazing feeling. It is a feeling that is almost like having a low-level orgasm, an intellectual low-level orgasm all the time. It can be a thing that I use to center myself when the world feels like it's going crazy. And let's be blunt, right now, chaos is a purposeful thing that's happening in the world. So I can center myself on this relationship, that I trust myself enough and I know myself well enough to have the authority in this relationship. And not only that, but there's someone else out there who knows me and trusts me enough to give me that authority, to recognize that authority. And honestly, that's the best part of this relationship, or any type of intimate relationship, is knowing you are yourself and that you are loved for that.
TammyJo, this has been so fantastic. Thank you so much for being here and sharing. You're so wonderful. And stick around for the afterglow. Where we will wind things down, reflect on big takeaways, and leave you with one juicy thing to try, think about, or explore before next week. Welcome to the Afterglow. TammyJo's story of pursuing a full-time MS relationship is fascinating, and it's also really beautiful. Her answer to that last question, saying that her partner feels the most like himself with her, is just so lovely. It made me just feel so full and happy. That is exactly what a trusting, supportive, and communicative relationship should feel like, BDSM-based or otherwise. When we see MS or DS relationships in media, we often see people who are toxic together, but also importantly, only people who are young. And something that stuck out to me about TammyJo's story is that she's been doing this for decades. She's an established, successful adult woman. She's got a PhD, people. And here she is living her best life and doing what serves her. Pun kind of intended, sorry. Here is your pleasure practice of the week. Think about how you would keep in constant communication with yourself and your needs. What questions would you ask yourself to make sure that you're doing your best? Maybe you need to get yourself some water. Maybe you need to command yourself to stop doom scrolling. Try being the master of your own health and comfort for a day. Thank you so much for listening. Love y'all. Talk to you next week.